I would remind people that we are now live. We aren't recording yet, but we will be in just a minute. I also see Tim in the waiting room. There we are. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Special Events Advisory Committee meeting for, I think, Wednesday, July 13th. It is 9:33, and I would like to call the meeting to order. I'm Paul Russell, and I represent Lower Sackville. I'd also like to acknowledge that the Halifax municipality is located in Mi'kma'ki, the traditional and unceded lands of the Mi'kmaq people. The municipality acknowledges the peace and friendship treaties signed in this territory and recognizes that we are all treaty people. And so at this point, I'd like to, because we are in a virtual meeting, I'd like to go through the role and just make sure that everybody's audio and video are working. Excuse me, let's start with Councillor Tony Mancini. Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. Tony Mancini, Councillor, District 6 in beautiful Dartmouth.
Absolutely, thank you. And Councillor Morse, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Good morning, committee members. Joining you from District 10 and Clayton Park.
Good stuff, thank you. And we have Ross Jefferson with us. Good morning.
Good morning, committee members and everyone. Ross Jefferson, President and CEO of Discover Halifax, joining you from today from downtown Halifax.
Oh, good stuff. Tim Rosesco, good morning.
Good morning. Sorry I was a little late. Happy to be here from downtown Dartmouth.
Good stuff. Well, we're glad you're here. Gordon Stewart, good morning. There you are.
Good morning, and good morning, everyone.
Good morning. And Kelly McIver, good morning.
Good morning. Kelly McIver reporting from Calturn Events.
There we go. Thank you. And Mike Gillette, the on the road Mike Gillette. Good morning.
I feel like that CBC radio show. Yeah. Yeah, Mike Gillette, Senior Event Coordinator with Calturn Events.
There we go. Thank you for joining us. And Andrea Lavazzi Wood is helping us out at the clerk's office. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair and the committee.
Good morning. The power must be off. We didn't see your room, but anyway. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of June 8th. Can I have a motion, please, to approve the minutes of June 8th, 2022?
I'll move that, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Morse. Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Thank you. Great. Thank you very much, Gordon. Are there any errors or omissions in the minutes of June 8? Not seeing any. All in favor of the minutes of June 8, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Great, thank you. The next item is the approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. Over to the clerk. Do we have any changes this morning?
Chair Russell, there are no additions or deletions to the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the order of business as presented, please?
I'll move.
Thank you, Ross. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Tim. Are there any changes from members of the committee? Not seeing any. All in favor of the order of business as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Great, thank you. Business arising out of the minutes? I don't see any. Call for declaration of conflict of interest. I don't see anybody moving. Consideration of deferred business is none. Correspondence, over to the clerk. Do we have any?
Chair Russell, there is no correspondence for this meeting, and there are no petitions from the clerk's office as well.
Ah, beautiful. Okay, thank you. Has anybody received any petitions? And I don't see anybody jumping up. The next item on the order of the agenda is a presentation from Rugby Canada. The speakers for today, today we will be receiving a presentation from Rugby Canada focused on the Senior Women Rugby Canada versus Wales match. The speakers for today are John Gillis from Rugby Canada and women's national team player Emma Taylor. John and Emma, you have 10 minutes to make your presentation, and at the end of the presentation, there will be an opportunity for questions of clarification from committee members. Welcome to the Special Events Advisory Committee, and good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Thanks for having us.
You're welcome. The floor is yours.
I'm going to go ahead. I want to thank Emma for joining us from Victoria at 5:30 a.m., where she is in camp with the national team. With her on the screen there is national team captain Sophie DeGoody as well, who is available for questions but will not be presenting. But, thank them both for being up this early hour, and thank you for taking the time to hear from us today. Try to get right to the point. I serve as the Director of Marketing for Rugby Nova Scotia, and I work with Rugby Canada actually as a doctor. I often cover matches for them, and I will be covering this upcoming women's match, but also we work together to promote these events when they come our way, and I'm the chair of the local organizing committee. We're before you today to talk about our application for some help for a major women's match on August 27th at the Wanderers grounds, which is our Canadian women's team versus Wales. We've applied through the signature event category. You will note from the application that this has been a bit unconventional due to COVID. There were no events to apply for last year. We couldn't put this in early because everything was shut down. The World Cup last year was postponed, and only in March of this year was World Rugby able to confirm the return of the World Cup this fall in New Zealand once New Zealand opened its borders. And in turn, at that time, we were able to move ahead with getting matches going. This match will be the last match for the Canadian women's team before they head to New Zealand for the World Cup. They're currently ranked number 4 in the world and have served us so proudly at past World Cups and in recent international events as one of the top teams in the world, and we look for them to do very well in New Zealand. But this is a big event for Halifax, bringing not only our team, but Wales, which is a big rugby nation, and one which has a very strong women's team presence. So we're very excited about this event. I'd like to take a minute to go back and then to go forward, maybe to outline why this is more than just one game, which, in my mind and in our mind, why this is important. Going back all the way to 2015, HRM helped us bring the Glasgow Warriors in to play the Canadian men's team. Some may remember a bit of a challenge at the Wanderers ground, which was not fit for play. We had to build a field in Spryfield at that time out of thin air with 48 hours. But the follow on from that led to some great things happening. It led to the redevelopment of the field at the Wanderers ground. It led to a new field at Graves Oakley. It led to the stadium at the Wanderers grounds. Many other factors as well, but started the ball rolling. And as some of you may know, we recently completed a facility at Graves Oakley, a 5,000 square foot community clubhouse and training facility that HRM was very kind to support. So some very good things have happened from the events we've had in the past. We were fortunate to have Canada USA men here in 2018, as well as the report notes an amazing series between the Canadian under 20 women and England and the US were here, but we played England at the Wanderers ground that year to great success despite a big rainstorm. Women's rugby is remarkably popular in this area. I would confidently say it's more popular than men's rugby. Last summer, when the women were here in camp, we had 2,200 people out for an inter-squad game, literally a game between one half of the team versus the other half of the team. A great day and a great mark of support for these women and their amazing product that they put on the field. Looking forward, there's a couple things I'd like to note. This game has evolved. In addition to Canada versus Wales, we're now pleased to announce that the 3-time national champions St. FX women will face 3-time national American champions Quinnipiac University as a curtain raiser to this game, which will bring even more people to HRM. Big alumni communities with both groups, and another big opportunity to have good things happen. But even beyond that, we have a working group that seeks to bring this program on a permanent basis to have its soft home in HRM, such that when the women are not traveling or when they're in camp, that they would base themselves here, taking advantage of the wonderful facilities at the Wanderers ground, at Graves Oakley, and our my colleagues can speak for themselves, but there's a strong bond here that these players and their program want to be here, and they can talk about that. So this is something amazing from where we've come from. This is a big opportunity right now, and as the report notes, a significant economic benefit from this game, which truly is a signature event in the run-up to the World Cup, which will bring in people from Wales, now from the United States, St. FX alumni group, and showcase HRM on TSN. There's going to be a big turnout and a great level of excitement in the city that week, not just the game, but coaching clinics, rookie rugby clinics, and a lot of other things happening around it. But this truly is a springboard to something greater. Our goal to bring this program here, which would mean yearly matches and the benefit of having this amazing women's sports program here, and all the benefits that will bring to the community in terms of inspiration for women in sport, girls in sport, and all the other great things that are associated with it. That's the crux of this application. I do reiterate that we wish that we could have gotten this in sooner. It was literally impossible due to COVID. Events are starting up again, and we do need and appreciate the help as we rebuild international events, as we rebuild a brand. But for all of these reasons, past, present, future, we really think this program, this game, and all the things that go with it are an amazing opportunity for HRM, both now and in the future, to truly add economic benefit, to add cultural benefit, to really focus and improve and put front and center women in sport, and to really show that this can be a sport, is a sports town, will be a sports town, but is a women's rugby town as well. And we are deeply committed to that. So I'll probably leave it there for now and turn things over to Emma, perhaps just to give a personal perspective. Emma is from Nova Scotia, from Scottsburn. Emma's lived in HRM for 12 years, but has been, doing the big work, playing professional and international rugby. So Emma.
Thanks, John. Good morning, everyone. As John mentioned, I am born in Pictou County, Scottsburn, but I've lived in Halifax. Yeah, I've lived in Halifax for about 12 years. I think one of the, obviously selfishly, I, get tingles thinking about playing in front of a home crowd. I've been involved with the national team for about 6 years. And if you would have asked me, even 4 or 5 years ago when I was first part of the program, or before I even started with the program, a camp or the national team coming to Halifax would have been, a ludicrous idea. Everything always happened in Toronto or on the West Coast where we are right now. So, last summer when we had a camp in Halifax, and as John mentioned, we played literally a game against each other, and the crowd that we had was phenomenal. And, the accommodations and just how everyone made our team feel so welcome, like everybody wants to be there. I think what's really neat is, we go into camp officially in Halifax, August 18th, and it does cap off with the game at the end of August. But a lot of our team is actually making their way out to Halifax directly following this camp. So about July 26th, most of our team will be in Halifax for about a month because they want to be there to train. So they'll be training, with us at the Canada Game Center, who have been immensely supportive. They're awesome. I've been training there, since I've been in Halifax. And I think, the coolest part is that because that, the first 3 weeks don't fall under our Rugby Canada budget. This is literally just our team saying and agreeing, we actually have a chance to win this World Cup. So we have to do absolutely everything we can. So everyone's decided to do what we're calling a soft centralization. And what that means is we've had to look for accommodations for everyone. So I couldn't get over it. We put the message out within the rugby community. And, I work for Irving Shipbuilding. I like to call it my part-time job, but now it's actually my full-time job. But yeah, I work for Irving Shipbuilding, and I even just put it out to some of the rugby fans at work. And I actually have like some of my teammates are billeting with, people I work with.
There's 30 seconds remaining, Anne.
Okay. Yeah. So I just think it's been awesome. Everyone's like very welcoming, and everyone's really excited to have us here. So all of the support would be so appreciated. And like John said, like we want a bit of longevity in this as well. The program wants to be in Halifax, and it's been, it's turning into like a rugby hub in Canada, which is really exciting because you could never say that before. So I'm just really thankful for this opportunity, and hopefully you all come out and watch the game.
I'm sure that a lot of people will, and I have no doubt that Councillor Mancini and a number of other councillors will. Thank you very much, John and Emma and Sophie, for your presentation. Sorry you had to get up so early in the morning to attend the meeting. You look super wide awake for that. At this point, I'm going to, and thank you very much for introducing us to the idea and to the topic. I'm going to open the floor basically to questions. If members of committee do have a question, please indicate that in the chat and we will get to you. But go ahead, Councillor Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. John, thanks for the presentation. Emma and Sophie, thank you very much for wearing that flag on your chest and banging and crashing representing Canada. That's so cool. And when we have more time, Emma, I'd like to find out, how does the girl from Scottsburn end up on the national team in rugby? But that's probably a story in itself. I'd love to hear that sometimes. But thank you both for doing so well. A few questions I have. You alluded to Coaches Clinic, John. So, what's happening with regard to, I'm looking at work or communication, coaching with youth, especially young girls, when it comes to rugby. Is that taking place during this time in August when the team is here?
Yeah, absolutely. So typically with these events, we would do a series of events throughout the week. We would have players and coaches attend events with the local clubs. And in this case, mini rugby. Several of the rugby clubs in HRM have mini programs. At my club, the Tars, helped a lot by the new facility. We had 150 kids out last night because their parents. It's improved because we have a place for the kids to change, for their parents, to watch and that sort of thing. But we will bring both coaches and players to work with these kids across HRM and beyond. To the club in Fall River, to Dartmouth, to other rugby clubs in the area. And we'll do that, with referees as well, just to develop, but with a big focus on youth. There will be a big youth rugby, rookie rugby day, the day of the game. We usually do that at the Garrison grounds across. And when we did it just recently for the men's game, again, we had over 100 youth there. And there's a big focus on youth here. There was a big push to have youth tickets sponsored so we could have these young people be there for free in many cases. And, particularly with this upcoming game, a focus on girls in rugby to make sure as many young women can be there to really see their heroes. My daughter's 11 and she's just over the moon that she gets to, see Emma and Sophie play and to participate in things with them. And, there's a massive focus there because that's the future.
You mean she's not watching City Council and looking at her heroes on City Council, John?
I think that's number 2, Councillor.
Oh, awesome. I'm proud of you. So I do have another question is because as you know, and everybody on the meeting knows, there's conversation taking place now about the next phase of the Wanderers Field. So, if we were able to get the Wanderers Field to that next stage, that next level, how does that impact rugby and at the level that Emma and Sophie are at? So, where do we go? It's very early in that conversation. I think the Wanderers was a huge success, and the field. You talked about, trying to bring the international sport here and not having a condition of the field, which was actually a good thing because it led to the Wanderers Field. but taking it to that next level, what impact does that have on the sport and the growth of the sport if we're able to bring it to the next level?
Every piece of quality in terms of stadia, training ground makes it easier to bring bigger events. We can get 5,000 to 6,000 people in there now. Something I didn't mention for time is that we also plan to apply for a big tournament called the Pacific Four next year, which is New Zealand women, Australia women, Canada, and US women. We'd like to bring that here. We believe that those games, particularly New Zealand and Australia, but even the Americans would, is a very popular rivalry. Everything that's done to add seats, to add to the quality of the locker rooms, makes it easier for us to bring even more bigger events here. Some of which, most of which we would think would feature our national teams, but even other events, just again, to bring more people and bigger and better events here. So as that stadium gets better, it's easier to make the pitch, both in terms of revenue and in terms of quality, locker rooms, all those things, meeting facilities, all those things that are important at the highest level. What goes into day-to-day work of these high performance athletes is significant. And we've come a long way from next to nothing to a great training facility and a great stadium.
Last question, Mr. Chair, if I may. The $50K that you're requesting, does it go to something in particular, or is it just going into the funds for this game coming up?
Yeah, I'll be as succinct as I can. The event obviously costs a great deal of money, the combination of ticket sales, what we can generate from local sponsorship. The sum total pays for the event. Coming out of COVID, it's been a challenge to get the brand back. Women's sales are actually easier than men's sales, and we think we'll do well on ticket sales, but it goes into the general revenue to cover the event, which does not seek to make a profit.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Chair. This last thing, Emma, Sophie, thank you very much. You continue to make us proud. That's awesome. We're very proud of our Canadian girls. You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mancini. Go ahead, Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks so much for this presentation. It's a very exciting event, and I'm really happy to support this financial request. And I think you've answered some of my questions. I'm really glad to hear that there's going to be a lot of local connections and encouraging our local athletes and inspiring them through this event. I guess I was hoping you could talk a little bit more about what it would mean to have Halifax as a base for women's rugby, and what kind of request that would be of the Wanderers grounds. Like how much would you be using that facility and that sort of thing? Thank you.
I'll make a brief logistical comment, but I think I'll send that to Emma and Sophie. The Wanderers ground would be the place where big games would be played. It wouldn't typically be a place to train for the impact on the field, that sort of thing. But again, we have Graves Oakley now. We have 3 beautiful fields there. We have the locker rooms. We have a place to do video and meetings. We didn't have that before. So the logistics are there. The impact on the Wanderers ground itself would not be significant. We'd like more games, but it wouldn't be day in and day out for logistics. I'll kick it to Emma and Sophie for the first part of your question, Councillor. Thank you.
Yeah, I realized this was maybe more of a logistical question, but I can just speak to a culture fit from the time I've spent in Halifax, which is just a few months here and there. But rugby is really about bringing people together and respecting not only we call them the laws of the game, the referee that we address as sir always, but also our opposition. It is a really physical game, but after every game, teams come together, we socialize with each other, we support each other. We've recently been doing some fundraising for our team, and we have women from other national teams that are donating to our team. So it is really a community sport. And from my time in Halifax, I feel that Halifax has that same cultural community feel of wanting people from different backgrounds to get together, wanting to hang out and have a good time and enjoy each other's company. And so I think in terms of a long-term view, the cultural fit of rugby, and specifically women's rugby in the way that we support each other, is a great fit for Halifax.
Yeah, I would also say, I think something that's really important to me is I want especially young girls, but young boys as well, to be surrounded by some of the best rugby athletes in Canada or in the world, really. I didn't really grow up, to semi-answer your question, Councillor, was that I didn't really grow up surrounded by rugby. It was, like I said, everything was very West Coast or, in Toronto, out of the big cities. And I think it's really cool how much the sport has grown, especially, for the women. And I think it would just be amazing for, the youth to actually grow up being surrounded by the national team athletes and having, these, have some of the athletes go out like on a weekly basis and help with coaching and just get to, see women training like in that professional environment on the daily. Because like I said, like I didn't necessarily get that when I was younger. And sometimes I wish that, I actually got to see someone to be like, hey, I can do this. Like someone from Scottsburn can end up on the national team. And I think that's really important. So that's something that like would be really important to me, is to be able to have that for, John's daughter and her friends. And yeah.
Oh, well, I think it would be exciting to become a rugby center of excellence if we could here in Halifax. And I thank you for telling me about the culture of rugby. We could use some of that rugby culture at council, don't you think? Anyway,
some days we absolutely could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Morse. Go ahead, Gordon. Gordon, you're muted.
Quick background for Tony, a little history. In Pictou County, where I'm obviously from, and give a thumbs up to Emma on that one. They always say you're from Pictou County before you actually say Scottsburn, which is kind of interesting. But Pictou County, actually, all the high schools in Pictou County only played rugby. They did not play an American style football. And I grew up playing rugby, and I think I still have some marks on the back of my back from cleats that ran through. And somebody would run over me on a regular basis, kind of thing. So there is a long history in that. And the only other area of the province at that time was, I think, King's Collegiate played. Anyway, first question, John, for you is, in raising sponsorship, what was it like raising sponsorship for this particular event for you?
So this event is ongoing. In fact, we had a meeting yesterday of a local group, sports, Derek Martin from the Wanderers, Phil Otto, who is on the Rugby Canada board, who's in marketing, Don Doffney from Domus Realty, who is a former national team player, to reaching out to people, right now, to work on that. That's in progress. So far, the general feeling is excitement when we tell this story. It's a story that needs to be told like we have here, because it's much more than just a game. It's the future. So it's I would say it's coming along, but like a lot of things coming out of COVID, it's been slow. We're fortunate we have, another 5 to 6 weeks before this game to develop additional sponsorship, which we need to fulfill this budget. Frankly, and we're working hard on it with a broad group to tell this story.
And logistically, what's your biggest challenge logistically in trying to organize this event?
I think the biggest challenge logistically is probably awareness at this point. It's letting people know the game is on, telling the story of this team. People who are aware are excited. We want to get this out past the rugby community to the sporting and broader HRM and community and beyond to excite them about this opportunity, particularly young women, young girls in sport, other sports, as a means of seeing what can be. That you can come from a small town, you can come from HRM and get here, rise to make a national team and go to a World Cup. And we're trying to tell that story. It is work coming out of COVID when people haven't seen big events, when they maybe haven't seen a big rugby event around in a while. So I would say that's probably our biggest challenge. The travel logistics are good. The stadium, Derek and his team make it turnkey. Now that we have a training facility, again, with great thanks to HRM, the province, and the federal government, that piece is easy. It's plug and play. It's really getting the word out and selling these tickets, developing the corporate sponsorship, and and telling what is I hate to call it a story, but what is a phenomenal, concept and something with great potential for the future.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Gordon. Go ahead, Ross.
Yeah, thank you very much. One quick question, Dr. Gills, if you could tell us, do you pay a fee for the use of the grounds or facilities, and if so, to whom?
That is built into the Rugby Canada contract, I believe, with the Wanderers. So I believe there is a fee for the operation of the ground. I think a lot of that is staff, to have staff there to run the facility. I can get you that information if you need it. I'm not sure about an actual rental fee, but there is a line item in the budget for the facility. My understanding is most of it is for staffing. That's the big cost, and security, people to run the actual event. But there may be a component of for rental that would be consistent with what the Wanderers soccer club do with other events. But I'm not tight to that deal.
And thank you. And so, just for clarity, you're not paying a fee to the city for the use of those grounds.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. I'll end on a compliment. First of all, just to say thank you. Events like these don't happen without volunteers and people in the community. So to everyone involved who is contributing and volunteer to this, thank you tremendously on behalf of Halifax and the industry. And best of luck to Emma and Sophie. We'll be there cheering you on, and we'll know you'll do awesome. So thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to Councillor Morse, I do just have a few questions of my own, if the committee will indulge me. I'm the chair. The committee will indulge me. How many games do you play on average in a year, not including COVID? So 2019 and before, and what you see going into the future. How many games would you play on the Wanderers grounds on average?
No, go ahead.
So this year is a bit of an anomaly just because we are ramping up for the World Cup. So if we use 2019 for an example, we usually play in a couple test matches in the spring, and then this Pacific Four tournament, or Pac-4 tournament that John alluded to earlier, that would be 3 matches. So if we hosted those would obviously all be in the HRM. For instance, we're actually in Victoria, obviously for a camp, but we play against Italy here at the end of our camp. So I think they're planning on keeping this coast to coast series moving. So that would be another match. And then we always do a November series, but that tends to go overseas due to the weather. So I'd say you'd be looking at anywhere between 4 to 5 games in Halifax. I think that would be a reasonable estimate. What do you think?
Yeah, I think right now we play probably the World Cup. There are more games this year, but we have on average played 4 to 6 games a year. But with the way that women's rugby is moving, in Canada for sure, but especially globally, it's a massive emphasis for World Rugby in all of their recent reports. There's a Six Nations tournament in Europe. There's this new Pac-4 tournament. We are starting a new global tournament outside of the World Cup called the Global Women's 15s. I think it's called XV to be fancy. But basically what I'm trying to say is there are other countries that are getting more games than us currently, but I think with the growth of the game and the support from World Rugby, our national team will be able to play more games and hopefully move towards that more, what John was talking about, long-term professional sort of centralization model. And so I think there will be more games than what we have currently played up coming up in the future. And the idea would be that Halifax would be a welcome host, and we would be very grateful to have the opportunity to play here for multiple games a year.
Okay.
Yeah, Chairman, I think it's fair to say that games will still be played elsewhere, but what we're trying to set up is a turnkey system where These women are not only mostly training here, but we'd like to see them living here. This is a great community for education. This is a great community for new jobs, and so many sectors are thriving here. We want to bring them here. So it would be easy to have the games here. Add the funding we're looking to put into place. We're looking to put together a package for Rugby Canada to make it a no-brainer. So if they're playing 6 women's games a year, that one might go to Toronto, one might go to the West Coast, but otherwise, this is home turf, and that's really our goal.
Super. That does actually address all of my questions. So thank you very much, John and Emma and Sophie. Councillor Morse, go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to say to Dr. Gillis, if you'd like to forward your promotional materials and information and to us on council, we can get that out to our colleagues, and we all have social media and that sort of thing that we can get the word out about the upcoming events and the story, as you said. So please, I can put my email in the chat if you like, or if there are other ways that we can stay in touch, that would be great.
Greatly appreciate that, Councillor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I don't see any further requests for speakers in the chat. So thank you, Emma and Sophie, for joining us. We can see that the sun is coming up, the light on the wall behind you. Sorry it's so early, and thank you, John, for joining us as well. This has been very beneficial, and I'm really hoping for some great events on August 27th. So looking forward to seeing it. Thank you, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thanks to you all for having us. We appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you. See ya.
The next item on the agenda is information items brought forward, and there are none. So now we have a staff report. This is item 9.1.1. The Milser funding request senior women's rugby Canada versus Wales match. We have no presentation this morning, but we do have Kelly McIver and Mike Gillette on hand to answer questions. So we all have the report in our package, and it is available on the HRM website under this meeting.
I guess the motion on the floor, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Councillor Mancini.
Following motion on the floor that the Special Events Advisory Committee recommend that the Halifax Regional Council approve the event grant in the amount of $50,000 from the 2022-2023 Community Events Reserve Q621 to fund the Senior Women's Rugby Canada versus Wales event contingent on the in-person event taking place. So moved.
Second.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morse. Go ahead, Councillor Mancini, on this.
So, like you, Ross said, I mean, this is the type of events that has such a positive impact in our community, especially, I would say coming out of COVID. We're still in COVID, but, our community is opening up again. These young women are so impressed me, how they work so hard, they work at their craft, they have full-time jobs, then they're involved in still having to scrape and for funding and doing these types of things and much, much more, and then giving back. And what a great message for our young people in our community. So, I fully support this. I think it's well worth it. It does lead to another conversation at some point in time for folks about, we need that next level facility, or we really do. I think the challenge we have, without getting too off base here, Mr. Chair, is that the challenge is leading, when we had the CFL discussion, we're leading with a professional team for a stadium. When we were having, leading with the Wanderers, another professional team, different sport, that's the problem. That's why there's so much pushback from many residents, not all, many. I think it really needs to be a more broader conversation on events and a variety of sports and what's the right size stadium. But again, that's not what the media, the emotion is about, but I think it's, we see the potential of that next level of stadium. And I believe the Wanderers location is the best place right downtown. It's already proven. And, when that first came up, Councillor Mason took a lot of heat from the community in the neighborhood. People were opposed to it because traffic and noise, and none of that came through. None of that. So good for Councillor Mason. And I fully support that. So I support the motion on floor. I hope everyone else supports it too. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Councillor Mancini. I don't see any further speakers in the chat. So all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. Great. Thank you very much. And thank you, Kelly and Mike, for joining us this morning. I appreciate.
I have a quick question. So logistically, so does this now have to come to council?
That is correct. Yes.
Oh.
We do have a council meeting in August. I think is it the 9th?
Yes,
Yes, it is.
If we needed it, now we do need it because of another item that we discussed yesterday. So at least that will get addressed at that point in time. So that's good. Okay, just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Mancini. And again, thank you, Mike and Kelly, for your input. It was extremely valuable.
Thank you.
Like I need an Uber tonight around 2 a.m. Pizza corner.
I hate picking you up that early, but I'll do it. I mean, that late. I guess it's early, late. Anything you need, Counselor, I'm there for you.
You're the man, Mike. You're the man.
Thank you
Have
very
a good
much.
day, everybody.
Thank you. We'll see you later.
Bye.
The next item on the agenda is committee member updates. And so this is where we have had a presentation by the different groups who form this committee, just to let everybody know what everybody is doing. So on the agenda today, we have Ross Jefferson. And go ahead, Ross, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Chair and members of the committee. Before I start, we have circulated the presentation in advance, and I don't want to be too long on this. Just as a guideline, Councillor Russell, how much time do we allot for this?
I don't see a time limit.
Okay. Well, look, I'm going to try and keep it brief, but I will stay as long on the subject as questions come in. So I'm going to try and be brief in the first part of the introduction. Oh, wow. Okay, we have it coming up. Thank you. I guess I'll ask somebody to move. I was going to bring it up myself, but I'll ask somebody to move these along. So I've got 4 things today, very briefly. I am going to just cover quickly on the core services of our organization and try to stay specific as it relates to events as well. We have launched a brand new program called the Take the Lead program, which is very much connected to event development. So I'd like to share that with the group today. One slide, I think, on COVID recovery, just to share with you where we are. And then I think it is probably really important for this committee to be aware of the proposed hotel levy increase. So I have a couple of slides just updating the committee on that, as it does have a direct financial impact to the Milsner Fund. Next slide, thank you. I think everyone knows who we are, Discover Halifax, who are membership based with almost 600 members. We're also funded primarily by the hotel levy, about 75% of our funding. This committee is probably aware, but 60% of the hotel levy goes to support our organization and 40% goes to support the Milsner Fund, which the grants are coming from, as this committee recommends. Next slide, please. We have recently changed our mission, but we seek to maximize economic and now social benefits derived from the tourism industry. And also a change, we do this not only for the people that invest in our region, but those who live and visit the region as well. This mission was changed this last fall to recognize those changes. Next slide, please. Our organization today has 3 core programs with a portfolio of offerings within each program. And we have 2 new proposed programs that are associated with the proposed increase in the hotel levy. Very quickly, next slide, please. The Destination Marketing Program. Typically in the run of a year, we invest about $1 million promoting HRM in the regions to our key target markets. Through this, we have television ads that run before movies, we have out of home, digital, print, social media, and we achieve about 600 million media impressions. This is a pretty significant number. We have about 250,000 followers in social media as well. Through this program, we do promote our signature events and our key events, as they are often things that drive people coming to the community. Next slide, please. In our second program, our visitor experience program, this is where we actually promote and market our specific members. We do this through a variety of channels. We have 2 different visitor guides, a new kids guide, a visitor guide, a series of maps, brochures. We have television channels dedicated in hotel rooms, and of course, the new digital kiosks and connection to public Wi-Fi. It's really about helping visitors plan and connecting them specifically with our members. This program is largely self-financed, and we charge our members fees for participating in these programs. This is a great part of a program, though, that does promote events. We do not charge our events to be promoted, but there's a large number of events, including this rugby event, that would be promoted in these channels for people to see and learn about. Thank you. Next slide. Our third program is our Meetings and Convention Sales program, and much like the Events East, we work very closely with. About 50% of our conventions happen in conventions outside of the convention center, but we do work on prospecting and bidding on all events, including those inside the convention center. We do promotion and advertising for the destination. We do prospecting. We have a highly integrated rate management and room block service that's integrated through our CRM system with our hotel partners. As you're aware, we do economic impact assessments, group servicing, and event planning supports. And we do have limited financial incentives, very limited, but we are looking to increase these, much like the events that are being funded here today. Conferences are being funded and bought throughout the rest of Canada. Halifax is one of the only communities that doesn't have a dedicated fund for this. But through the increase in the proposed increase in the hotel levy, we will be adding a strategic financial incentive fund to support conferences for the community. Next slide, please. I should say, just on that point, though, we bid or support about 200 events or RFPs in the run of a year, and we win about half of those. The committee hopefully is also aware we are starting in this area of destination development and have developed the first integrated tourism master plan for HRM, and we're at the 1-year anniversary with a report card coming out. It's been issued to council, and we're looking forward to it being publicized. So some of this, the proposals in here do impact and do have a recommendation supporting the events development to specific. So hopefully you'll be familiar with those. Next slide, please. I really did want to share with you, hopefully you've heard about the Take the Lead program. Maybe you've seen some advertising, or you've seen some of the awards that have been given out. Next slide, please. The Take the Lead program is really, it's a recognition that specifically in events and conferences, a large majority of events come to our community because there is a individual, a person or persons who are volunteers in our community who put their hand up to either lead a bid, to make a connection to their networks, and to put their name forward in supporting this. Whether people have children in particular sports, somebody may be interested in music, or somebody in the convention world, many professors specifically, helping bring conferences here. The purpose of this program, next slide, please. The 3 goals in this program, what we have learned is that many people do not know that our organization has support services, and they don't have to do this alone. We have free services to help put bids together, to help develop and prepare proposals, to have them professionally developed, to help them with room blocks and negotiating prices. So this program is aimed to inspire people to step forward, to let them know that there are support services, and finally to recognize those champions in meaningful ways. And I'll ask for 2 slides to be advanced just slowly here. You'll see 2 ads here. Oh, sorry, pause on this one for a second. I will say that this is for all event types, conferences, sports, culture, and leisure events. And it's for all markets, including regional, national, and international. And we have 2 slides following here that just show some examples of the advertising. Oh, no, sorry, jumping ahead. Here's the pin. This is the award that is given to champions. We are planning twice a year to have a ceremony to award our volunteer champions. We just had an award given out by the mayor at the mayor's address and dinner here recently. This pin was specifically designed for this purpose by local NASCAD student in a competition, and in your kits you can read a little bit about this pin. We are really trying to push this campaign and brand awareness so that it makes it easier for our salespeople to call somebody blindly and say they've been identified as a potential champion because of their passion in a sport, and to encourage them to help us with bids. Next slide, please. There's the ad I was talking about. Here's an example, a sample of some of the ads that we've been running, where you may see them in the inside of the elevators digitally and throughout the community as well, including the next slide, which shows an ad that was placed in the newspaper talking about take the lead, encouraging citizens, encouraging the business community to step forward if they have a connection for either a conference or an event or a passion in trying to bring an event here. It's also, again, a recognition program thanking people like Louis here, who, as an example, I think brought 3 swim meets to HRM. Next slide, please. This is the, moving on from the Take the Lead program, just a slide here to show, this is rooms sold pre-pandemic. This is a graph that you could trace over for the last 10 years pre-COVID and almost have the identical graph every year. You were hitting peak around 38,000 rooms. We don't have any more to sell. That's when we're completely sold out. And if you'll advance the next part of the slide, you'll see what happened with the pandemic. An immediate drop off in March, a little bit of reprieve for the year for the Atlantic bubble. The next portion of the slide, you can see what happened in June, July in 2021 when the travel restrictions were removed. We had a quick snap back in visitation. And the next slide can show you where we are this year. This year, we are actually back to ahead of pre-COVID levels, and we are actually at all-time record levels for visitation that's happening right now. So demand is back. There are some incredible supply challenges that are still happening within our industry, not just here in Halifax, but throughout all of the world and all of Canada. And it's not hard to find stories in the newspaper about some of those challenges. Halifax is doing quite well relative to many other regions, but those challenges still exist. That concludes the presentation on the COVID update, and I'll conclude here on the last slides about the hotel levy project. No, forgive me, I do have one more. This slide here, I just really want to point out the importance of events. The yellow line that you see from August to October, and Tony, I'm welcome, happy to take a question if you do in the middle of the presentation. But let me just explain this slide. The 2020 numbers that you see at the bottom, the blipping line looks like a heartbeat. Every weekend, we were having a lot of leisure visitors coming into the community. And then you can see the drop down on the Monday and the Tuesday of the week. Every week, you have this drop down. So you have the leisure visitors coming in the weekend, and then you have low occupancy rates during the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. When the Canadian market came back, the blue line, and we opened up to Canada, that trend continued. The real difference is pre-COVID years, you can see the weeks get leveled out because the events that happen in our community usually happen on the weekday portions of this. So it's a really wonderful leveling out of demand throughout the days of the week when our events are back, and we're really proud to see events back. And Councillor Mancini, I'd be happy if you'd like to have a question.
If you finish your presentation, are you done, Ross?
No, I've got maybe just a couple more slides on the hotel levy increase. Yes.
Finish your presentation first.
Okay, thanks. Next slide then. Thank you. Okay, a briefing on, I think was really important for this committee. Next slide. I want to give you a background on the hotel levy. Many of you may be familiar, but it was very early on. Halifax was very much a leader in the development of a hotel levy in Canada and quite frankly in the world. 20 some years ago, in 2001, there was the proposal by the Hotel Association of Nova Scotia and HRM to voluntarily put a tax on hotels. Much of Canada really scrambled to try and follow Halifax at its time. There was provincial legislation enabled specifically for HRM to create a tax. It was, today it's Bill 94, the Halifax Regional Municipality Marketing Levy Act, and it enabled HRM to collect the tax. The tax was legislated in law not to exceed 2% and for properties 20 rooms in size. HRM bylaw was also created, H400, respecting the Marketing Levy Act, which dedicated 60% of funds to support our organization and 40% of funds to support the special events or the Milsner Fund. Next slide, please. While Halifax was a leader over the 20 years, many communities have copied this and in fact have increased their hotel levies and their contributions to tourism. While we were a leader, we have actually fallen here in Halifax in terms of overall investment. We've fallen to the back of the pack. We are not providing the level of services nor the depth or breadth of services that our competitors are now providing here in Canada. Next slide, please. Some of the benchmarking that was done on a per room basis, which is an equalizer. You can see here how this was as a 216, the marketing budgets or the total budgets for destination marketing organizations across the country. The average investment was $1,596 per room in the region. So if you had a smaller region, it's an equalizer. It makes the comparison between Toronto and Victoria, BC, or on par with Halifax. As a comparator, I do like to use Victoria, BC. They have about a $12 million budget and about the same size as HRM. Our budget is around, it's now up around 3 million pre-pandemic, 3.5 million pre-pandemic, including the extra funds we generate outside of the hotel levy. Next program, please. Or next slide, please. A large part of this is because we have one of the lowest hotel taxes in the country, and in addition to that, the 60-40 split dilutes the amount that's invested in the DMO. You can see here that some of the regions in the country are as high as 7% hotel tax, and we are directly competing with those communities for the attraction of everything from events and conferences to leisure visitors and marketing as well. Next slide, please. We have started conversations early with the Hotel Association about this challenge, seeking their political support and their political capital to increase the hotel levy. It's not often many industries agree to tax themselves, but through these conversations with the Hotel Association, they have agreed to allow the legislation cap to be removed to collect more. I do want to really thank and recognize them because this is not exclusively for their benefit. They do recognize this benefits many parts of HRM, businesses beyond hotels, as well as regions beyond just the downtown where the tax is collected. Our mission mandate includes all of HRM, and the Hotel Association supports that. So we have a proposal in an MOU that has been now accepted by council. We do require provincial change in the legislation. There is a cap currently at 2% written in the legislation and a threshold at no greater than 20 rooms for accommodations providers. The change in the allocation amounts is also in the memorandum of understanding, changing the amount from 40% to 35% for the Milsner Fund. And I'll share with you on the next slide the impact of those changes on both budgets. There is a portion of the request to ask HRM to increase their contributions by $250,000 a year over the next 4 years as well. Next slide, please. The financial impact of these changes are investments in the following 5 areas. One in the area of destination development and promoting HRM, which includes promoting events. The second is in the development of an events office or an events shared service offices. This is new fundings to support event bids. The third is a small investment in our visitor experience program, again, in part to help promote events. Third, a $950,000 contribution to marketing, which will also be used to market and promote events in portion. As I've shared, we do not have a fund for supporting conferences today, so $100,000 to support a new strategic incentive fund. And the final, which is an increase over current estimated levels today of about $658,000 annually to the Milsner Fund. Next slide, please. The committee should be aware there has been extensive work done by HRM in 2019, a Stat Pro report, which looked at recommendations on improving the areas of event hosting, structure and resources, strategy, research and prospecting, bid assessments, partnerships, bid coordination, development, and hosting. There was also a recommendation to establish an event bid lead agency that ensures the full cycle can be delivered effectively. These recommendations are specifically what the events office would be implementing and working on. And in this final slide here, the next slide, please. This final slide here, the process for an event coming to a community is well mapped out. This is the model prepared by the Canadian Sport Tourism Alliance. And you can see 2 major portions of the steps into the bidding and hosting stages. Today, we do have wonderful services, including those that are provided by the events office, the HRM events office, primarily hosted around hosting of events. That's where the competency and the skills are based. Today, we are reliant upon what has been referred to in many studies as a shared leadership model for bidding on events. It means that no one agency is responsible or no one strategy is driving the bidding. We do think that Halifax has evolved into the needs now to have a lead agency that acts as a backbone, working with all partners on the development of a coordinated strategy on the development of prospecting, bidding, and going strategically after events. As you know today, we receive proposals from those who have a passion and a desire to bring events to our community, but we are not actively pursuing events that are strategic for our community, and there is a great opportunity to do that in this new proposal. Next slide, please. I think I'll leave this slide just in the essence of time. I'm running a little long. But we do have a number of transferable competencies in our organization to take on this responsibility, but I'll skip that in the essence of time right now. Next slide. I think the next slide is for you, Councillor Mancini.
So,
there isn't a next slide. I have a question. The next one's supposed to say questions. So thank you for the time this morning. I'm really pleased to take any questions or feedback from the committee members.
Okay, thank you very much for the presentation, Ross. That was just about 5 minutes or something. Go ahead, Councillor Mancini.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ross, thank you. I can't imagine what the last 2 years have been like for you and your team. I mean, it was foreign territory for all of us, but especially for the work that you guys do. And thank you very much. And look at where we are today. I'm really intrigued by establishing this bid agency because, I look at it. We've got the convention center doing their thing. We've got Discovery Halifax doing things. We've got groups like we saw with John Gillis today doing their thing and trying to coordinate that. And there has to be an efficiency about that. So that's very intriguing. You made a comment about, the events you go after, the bids you make, we get half of them. What are the reasons why we're not getting the other half?
I'm sorry?
What are the reasons why you made a comment about the events you go after, we get half of them, the bids you make. So
Yeah.
what are the reasons why we're not getting the other half? Are there gaps that you're seeing? Is there a trend that you're seeing and why we don't get some that we go after?
Well, we do track every event who we're competing with, and predominantly, Councillor, these are conferences that we're talking about because we don't we now have one dedicated individual that covers the entire what we call a Smurf market, which includes sporting events, but many other types as well. The primary reasons why we lose the bids we're going after in the convention space is either room block availability. So they're coming in at a time that we don't have rooms available.
Okay.
It can be pricing. It can be transportation. So we are a little bit disadvantaged when we're going after international conferences because Halifax is one more flight away. So sometimes they do like to gather in the Torontos, the Montreals, because internationally it's easier to connect. And financial incentives is another that's often brought up, financial reasons and financial incentives. But a 50% success rate is actually quite phenomenal considering we are competing with Toronto, Montreal, Quebec City. We're competing with Calgary, Vancouver. Now, we also pre-prospect, so we're not going after conferences that don't make sense for us as well. But we've got a sales team of 4 individuals who are full out prospecting, calling local champions, calling international clients, working with Destinations International Canada on their convention list, and making cold calls even across the country to major events. We have a dedicated salesperson also in Ottawa who works closely with our regular clients. So it's quite a significant business that we're operating.
How do you measure your success? I mean, going after the convention events is one way, but how else do you measure, the success? There's things that you do that are obvious that you can easily measure, but how do you measure the indirect stuff that you're involved in?
Yeah, Councillor, you're breaking up a little bit. I think your question was how do we measure success? We have a series of KPIs. It is a sales office run with an experienced VP who has tremendous experience in sales. So a number of KPIs and metrics. We measure our tentatives. We have a series of terminology, but we have tentatives and definites that we measure, prospects and leads that we measure. We have ratios and KPIs that we follow. Ultimately, we are measuring the economic impact of every individual event and summing it. And it's around $60 to $70 million a year in economic impact from the conferences that we're bidding on. So there are a number of different KPIs that we measure success upon. We also benchmark against all of the other communities. And Halifax has been known to be punching well above its weight, in large part because the destination and the experience that delegates want to have. Notwithstanding, sometimes we are losing because of the financial incentives we don't have, but Halifax is doing quite well.
Thank you, Ross. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mancini. Go ahead, Councillor Morse.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I wonder if you could remind us what the hotel levy increase is that you're recommending.
So the Hotel Association has been the lead on this in the proposal to council. Right now, we're talking about an increase from 2% to 3%.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And you don't think that would impact on, you said that sometimes conferences aren't coming because of the price, but you don't think that would be a factor? No,
in fact, we'll still have one of the lowest levies in the country. New Brunswick just added a new hotel tax at 3.5%, Ontario at 4%. It still keeps us at the lowest in the country. And we know that visitors are very, very accustomed to paying hotel taxes. Yeah. In fact, when prices are quoted, they're quoted pre-tax. So the taxing doesn't come into the equation whatsoever.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And could you give us an idea of where you are with the provincial legislative change that you're requesting? And maybe if you could comment a bit on what would ideally the changes you'd like to see at the airport that would help us be more competitive.
Thank you. On the first question, where we are with the provincial legislation, no one has moved forward to present this to the provincial government. The approach was we wanted to make sure that HRM, yourselves and council, as well as the Hotel Association, were in agreement, and we're really pleased to see that that agreement has been reached in principle with the latest memorandum of understanding. Collectively, the city and the Hotel Association, and now us, are now approaching government with this request. The request to change from 2% to 3%, I think, is a very simple pen stroke, easy to open up the legislation. However, the second portion about changing the room size and taxing the Airbnbs is a little bit more complicated and probably requires a deeper legislative review as well as an implementation plan. The bigger challenge will be, or the risk, I shall say, will be there are other communities in HRM that have expressed the desire to have a hotel tax. The legislation could get held up if two things may happen. Obviously, consultation with the rest of the province. So instead of just changing the HRM Marketing Levy Act, they may create a brand new act for the entire province. The second risk associated with that is if they want to change either the funding formulas or the requirements for uses in a prescriptive model, that will either extend the time to get the legislation changed, or in an extreme case, in reality, there are other risks that could be considered as well that maybe I'll hold for now on.
Okay, thank you. All right. I want to hear your thoughts on the airport too, but just on the legislation, it sounds like it could strategically be a lot better to split them out, because you have a fairly quick change that you could make, although nothing's quick at Province House, but you have one that, could be relatively simple. And you wouldn't want to see that one held up for the other one, which sounds quite a bit more complicated.
Absolutely, Councillor. And that is the approach. We are asking to have a two-stage approach. One is to change the increase in the hotel levy from 2 to 3. Second phase would be to increase or change the room number, which is that portion will generate around 450,000. The second piece, the first piece generates around 1.8 million or so. Off the top of my head, it's the easy one to do, and that's where most of the funding is.
Okay. Thank you. And did you have any thoughts on what needs to change at the airport?
Well, look, we work closely with the airport, so I think that right now in COVID, there is a lot of things that are changing in the dynamics that are perhaps positive for the Halifax International Airport. Much of what happens at the airport is driven by decisions by the carriers themselves. They have a desired hub and spoke network that works primarily through Montreal and Toronto. What we're seeing, though, is that breaking down right now. And I think an opportunity to de-risk for the airlines would be actually to have another hub for the region. I think it works well for the airport. Right now, there are tremendous challenges in the airline industry and the transportation industry in general. And I think that HRM and Halifax is probably doing better than most regions. So, I'm sure there's lots of things that we could wish and hope for, but I think we are in a better position now than we have been in the past.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Mark, you had entered a comment in the chat. I'm wondering if you have questions for Ross.
No questions. I'm lucky to hear Ross and see Ross present on other channels. I am a member of HANS, so we worked closely with Ross over quite some time. So I'm really familiar, and just I think the presentation was great. Fully support it, and really it's exciting to hear some of the comments. I jumped on the comments about weekday business with events and whatnot, because that's one close to our heart for sure. But it was great. So thank you. That's it.
Okay. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Gordon.
Ross, great presentation, as always, I might add. You always do a great presentation. And I particularly one graph I have one comment on, which parallels much of the 22. The restaurant sector in HRM has done well. The sales have bounced back up, some to pre-COVID levels. The one thing that I would raise the flag on that everybody needs to understand, well, sales are strong, profit is not strong. And we expect by the end of the year, there'll be some serious trouble in sectors. Our sector, we're going to see profit drop. And the parallel on the other side, the bad side of the coin, is that we're carrying a considerable amount of debt more that's not being paid yet. A lot of that will be CEBA, will be off for another year, a holiday on that. And a lot of people will not be able to carry that debt forward, and most will not be able to pay that debt. So, I mean, it's all the profitability sides. Sales generate obviously are key right now, and that's great to see the sales go up. But with the labor issues and cost issues between April of last year and April this year, food costs have gone up almost 18%, and that's just, we've never seen that in 5 decades in our history. So, just a little red flag of that. Great presentation, good numbers. Thanks, Ross.
Yeah, thank you, Gordon. I can appreciate the restaurants in particular. The cost of goods are going up and the margins are shrinking. Labor is going up for everyone. And on the debt issue, in Halifax alone, since the pandemic, hotels have lost $260 million in Halifax alone in revenue compared to pre-pandemic. And that's not including this year. Of course, this year they have come back. That's $250 million of real, not estimated money. That's consumer spending happening. We know that because we actually get paid based on the hotel levy, and we've had an equal percentage drop to that number. So it's a very real number, it's not a factored up number. It's a real number that's happened in HRM.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, Ross. I do have a couple of questions. You had shown a number of ads, the Take the Lead ads, and I'm wondering where those are playing. Are they within Halifax? Are they across Nova Scotia, or are they outside of Nova Scotia?
That's an awesome question. Primarily focused inside HRM. We are trying to inspire champions and individuals inside HRM. Our advertising budget for this is about $20,000. So we can't run them all year round. We have been trying to be very strategic, running them at certain points when we're handing out awards. So you'll see them, hopefully you'll see them inside the elevators and business buildings, so trying to hit the business community around conventions and conferences, some out of home and billboards outside, and some targeted digital ads that are only really, we pick and choose demographics, hitting the universities, professors, sports communities as well. And we follow up to many of those individuals with sales calls to ask them if they're interested in leading an event or bringing an event here.
Okay, thank you. And have you seen much uptake because of those ads?
We've already succeeded in having one successful event. I think we've got around 8 or 9 that are actively being bid on as a result of that. The ROI for the program only needed to have 1. We expect that right now we're hopeful that we can have 10 to 15 a year as a result of that program. So the given number of about $2 million a year from an event, the ROI in that a $40,000 campaign is quite successful.
Super. Okay, thank you. You had mentioned the 38,000 rooms, and I'm wondering, we have a homeless crisis here. We are using some rooms because of the homeless crisis. I'm wondering how that has impacted that.
About 2% of our rooms right now in HRM are being used to shelter those that find themselves without homes today. It is something that many of the hotels have been doing throughout the pandemic. It is adding increased stresses and pressures, as hotels have also had to enter into contracts to host things like the North American Indigenous Games or the conferences that are happening all year long. And what happens is we have contractual requirements that take us to peaks. As we hit those peaks, for the traditional customers and obligations, it makes it incredibly difficult to achieve both. So our communications to those partners are that hotels are, obviously willing to continue to be partners, but it can't continue to be a long-term solution for the housing challenges. We need to find appropriate housing for everyone. But we appreciate this is a complex issue, and I think the Hotel Association and its members have been very accommodating under the times of right now supporting the community.
Okay. Thank you. And one final question. We had heard earlier, I think it was Councillor Mancini, and we saw yesterday at council with the presentation from the convention center that there is a bump in events right now where everybody had the backlog of 2.5 years that they're trying to get done this year. Crystal ball time. Do you anticipate that with the hotel market as well, or is this going to be business as usual?
So the general leisure visitation is absolutely rebounding in the same way. Pent-up demand has happened both in the group business and conventions as well as leisure. We had forecasted this and saw this coming about a year ago, and we're really encouraging businesses to start to staff up, even though it wasn't always accepted or believed. Many hotels and many properties did agree to start staffing up early, and Halifax was actually, I think, better prepared than many communities when the snapback happened. So yes, the rebound is there. We do see a lull or a bit of a slowing in the pace as we get to 2024, even 2023 a little bit, but we are boistered by things like the North American Indigenous Games and others. But we are still on pace and on track with what's happening nationally. So Halifax is keeping up and a little bit ahead of what's happening nationally.
Super. Thank you very much, Ross. I don't see any further questions in the chat. So again, thank you to Ross and everybody else for the very informative and probing questions. The next item on the agenda is added items, and there are none. So the date of our next meeting is August 10th, and this will be if required. At this point, I haven't heard if it is required or not. Andrea, do you have any foresight on that?
Chair Russell, I did receive a request from staff yesterday about a potential report needing to come to the August 10th meeting, but I haven't received any final details regarding that yet.
Okay, so we are uncertain about that at this point. So thank you very much. And that is it for the meeting. Can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
I so move.
Thank you very much, Councillor Morse. We stand adjourned. I hope
Thanks,
everybody